This episode is brought to you by the Regional Air Quality Council. This summer, don't go it alone. Carpool and combine trips, or take public transit to get where you need to go to reduce ground-level ozone. Created from pollutants like car exhaust, ozone is the Front Range's biggest air quality issue and a leading cause of respiratory problems. Learn more ways to help improve air quality in the Front Range at simplestepsbetterair.org. And sign up for summer ozone alerts to know when it matters most by sending Better Air CO to 21000. This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum. Check out the Denver Art Museum's next late-night event, Untitled Artist Takeover, happening on Friday, July 25th from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Join featured artists and disability rights activists Wheelchair Sports Camp for an evening of fun, including art making, offbeat art tours in the galleries, one-night-only art installations, and performances by Wheelchair Sports Camp, Denver's biggest, smallest band. Untitled Artist Takeover is included in general admission and free for Denver Art Museum members. Reserve your tickets today at denverartmuseum.org. Today on CityCast Denver. It's not just Park Hill neighbors who are eager to see what the city of Denver is going to do with the former Park Hill Golf Course. The whole city voted to stop private developers from building housing and retail, so I think we all want to know what's happening with that 155 acres. I reached out to the head of Parks and Rec, Jolyn Clark, to talk about how the design is shaping up and why it's all costing so much money. Today is Thursday, July 24th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Jolyn Clark, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Thanks. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So I want to start with the Park Hill Park because the city's been fighting over this 155 acres of open space for years, but it finally seems like it's ready to open as an actual park soon. Can you tell me what's the latest?
Yeah, we're getting really close. It's a complicated real estate deal. And so that process was laid out when City Council officially approved the purchase. And so we've been committed to within 30 days after that closing, we will have it open to passive use, and we're on pace for that. And so after it closes, within that 30 days, we'll probably be able to do a volunteer event. We've got a lot of people who want to get kind of behind the scenes before it opens, but also we're going to need some help spreading mulch and picking up trash and just getting it ready. And then we'll be able to get the park open so that you can take a walk through it. You can walk your dog through it. You can go hang out in the park kind of very quickly in that first 30 days. And then we'll slowly work on trying to bring on some more, active amenities. So add some picnic tables or some, maybe a fenced off dog park for off leash, depending on what the community is asking. But we're looking at really low dollar, easier to do things in that short term, because we don't want to build something and then the community vision says, oh, that's right where the playground should go. And then we're tearing that out to build a playground on things that are expensive. So we're looking for inexpensive things that will activate the park, give people more stuff to do inside the park in the short term, while we're working on getting ready for construction for kind of the long-term vision of what the community wants to see there. And so it's exciting because it will be open quickly, but it will be kind of transforming over time from just it's open. We'll get the cart paths safe. We'll make sure none of the tree branches are going to fall on anybody, and just kind of walk through it to, hey, there's some stuff to do here, to eventually kind of that regional park that everyone is dreaming of.
Do you have an ETA on when that passive use of the park might be available?
We're still on schedule for the real estate transaction to close in late summer, early fall. I can't remember what the exact date is, or if they've even firmed that date, because there's a due diligence period that happens, and then I think usually they set the date. But late summer, early fall for closing, and within 30 days of that kind of open. So I'd say we're probably fall-ish for being able to walk through, and it is going to look a little different. I want people to have the right expectation. We can't just, I know a lot of people want us to just kind of tear the fence down and make it open like all our parks are. We don't fence our parks here in Denver. But we have, a golf course that was never open at night. And so there are no lights on the interior of this park. And so we can't safely keep that open in the dark when you could be in the middle of 155 acres with no lights, right? And so we will likely in the beginning, when we first open it, it will be, we'll open the gates and it'll be more like some of our mountain parks that are dusk till dawn. And we'll have people come in and opening and closing the gates to, just create a safe environment on that while we work to look at how do we, are there some solar lights that we can kind of use on the interior in the short term as we work towards getting utilities out to places and mapping out where the eventual paths will go and what needs to be lit and those kinds of things. So it will look, it's not gonna be, City Park, Wash Park, Sloan's Lake overnight. The advantage we have is this is not 155 acres of industrial property where we have to say, hey, we can't open it at all when we first purchase it, and it will take years before we can make the investment to open it. Because it was a golf course and then that's a similar use to a park, we can get it open for use, but it's going to look a little different in that short term than just tear down the fences and let anybody go whenever they want.
I know you said gates will be open to close sort of like after like the dusk to dawn time frame. Is it gonna be patrolled? Because like I feel like neighbors have kind of already been going in there from time to time because it's just this big open space in the middle of their neighborhood.
Yes. So from our perspective, we will have, park rangers patrolling and making sure that things are safe. And again, when you close the gate, have to make sure that nobody's still in there and missed the fact that it's closing at dusk. And so we'll kind of do a sweep through just telling people, hey, it's time to go home for the night here, similar to how we do curfew patrols in parks across the system.
I think that's good to set expectations, though, because honestly, until you said it, I did not think about the fact that this is 155 acres without lighting the way a Wash Park or City Park is. Like,
yes,
that's helpful to think about.
A lot of times a golf course feels like, oh, it's just a park, that you play golf in. And in a lot of ways, the golf course is fundamentally different. Even the way the irrigation systems are set up is fundamentally different than you would in a park. And so we do have a lot of work to kind of get to that vision of it really being a park. The advantage is we'll have a higher level of access on day one than we would had it not been a golf course.
How have people been responding to these surveys that ask for feedback? Because I can imagine people still have strong feelings about the park, but are you all getting feedback?
We're getting a ton of feedback. We have more than 3,000 responses on our second survey.
Oh, wow.
I don't have the number for our first survey. We are having tons of people show up to the events that we're doing. I mean, people are really, really excited about this. This is a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity. It's the largest piece of private property that the city has ever acquired for parkland. There are different ways that land comes into the city, but that acquisition, the ability to actually purchase private property, will be the largest opening of a park that we've had since Wash Park was opened in the early 1900s in terms of acreage. So it's a really big deal, and people all across the city are very excited about that. And people in the community, I think what we're seeing is people are excited to be talking about what do we do in the park. There's been so much divisiveness and there's been so much, what are we going to do with this property? To actually talk about the fun stuff that we get to do has been really fun. And, I was at one of the events and a woman came up to me who's very involved with the neighborhood, I don't know if it's Nextdoor or Facebook page or whatever. And she was just like, there are people who have not been speaking to each other for the last couple of years because it was so divisive. And all of a sudden they're both on the same post being like, well, I would really like a playground too.
Yeah. Well, speaking of again, you said you got 3,000 responses. What is the wildest idea you've had pitched about what to do with this land since you started working on it?
I mean, I will pick the one that did not come to us, but the Denver Post did kind of an early survey of ideas. And the thing that I think even hit the headline there was zebra sanctuary. And everybody in my shop, we were like, wait, what question did they ask?
You've got a zebra enthusiast in the neighborhood.
Yeah. So that is still the one that to me, I'm like, a zebra sanctuary. Huh. Interesting. But yeah, no, I mean, we have a ton of passionate people, great ideas, the number of just one-off conversations too that I have that somebody, I'll be at an event or somebody will reach out to me and just be like, can I have 30 minutes of your time? And will tell me about, their history in the neighborhood and how important, having a soccer field would be, or having a splash pad or a playground or, those kinds of things it's really amazing to see people have this moment to really dream and dream big about a really big opportunity in such a positive way on a piece of land that has mustered so many tough emotions for so many people. On the park side of it it's really been fun. It's really been fun to work with community on that.
So you all have been considering sort of 3 different general themes for the park, like outdoor recreation, natural spaces, like more emphasis on the culture of the neighborhood. Can you explain what those might look like or mean for someone walking through the park? Or like, is there any idea of what you all are going to land on when it comes to what my experience would be walking into this park for the first time?
Yeah, we're still very early in that process, right? This is a visioning process. This is not going to get down to, construction documents. This is not going to get down even to the playground will go here. This is really kind of trying to build that vision of what does this look like. And I think it's such a unique opportunity to dream about a regional park, right? Because one, there are a ton of wants and needs for the immediate community, as there always are. For many people, their neighborhood park is a regional park, right? They live right by Wash Park or City Park or Sloan's Lake or Houston Lake Park, and that is their neighborhood park, but it's also a regional park that has this, it lives in all of our minds and hearts, right? There are people who live nowhere near those parks, but that's where they proposed. That's where they got married. That's where they had their parents' big anniversary party or a kid's big birthday party. And so it also belongs to all of us in a different way than some of these pocket parks and neighborhood parks that really are for that neighborhood, and almost nobody else goes there, right? Because they're small, they don't have permitted space. And so I think to really dream about within the context of our existing regional parks too. You don't need to just copy and paste what we have at City Park because that's a regional park and put it there. We have an opportunity to say, hey, what are the gaps in our system, right? What is there not anywhere that this would be a place for it? And I think that's where you start to see some of these, there's been a lot of talk about this is a place that already has mature trees, that already, is a big green space, not an industrial space. So is there a bigger natural component, a bigger habitat component to it than you would see at a city park that was, developed and designed under a different era and in a different vein? Or is there a larger kind of sports complex here? There was a lot of folks who've been talking about, hey, my kid is in competitive basketball or volleyball or lacrosse or soccer, and they have to travel out of state or way out of the city to compete in those tournaments because we don't have this destination hub for kind of active recreation in that way. And so what could that look like there? And then there's also this outdoor adventure. I think, one of the things that really captures hearts and minds in our city is what we do at Ruby Hill Park, which is another regional park where any kid can walk up and check out skis or a snowboard and learn to ski or snowboard right here in the city.
Yeah, and I like the idea, though, when you talk about regional parks and how we connect with those even when they're not like directly in our neighborhood, or like, because I'm thinking about like I had my wedding pictures at Alamo Placida Park. My husband grew up in Baker, so his birthdays were at Daly Park. My first job was at Garland Park in a summer camp. Like my band played our first show on the pavilions at Cheeseman Park. Like there's a lot of cool ways to make these parks unique that then will fit those things that people will say, oh, I got my prom. You see so many people doing prom pictures, but like, how cool is it that like the Park Hill Park is now maybe where the prom pictures are taken, or where someone learns how to ride a mountain bike on a dirt track or whatever. So
absolutely.
I think cool to think about it from the ground up.
It's really, and that's the magic of the role that parks play in the fabric of our city, right? Because, I got married at Cheeseman Park, and I just took prom photos with my daughter at Cheeseman Park in that pavilion. That's a place that I don't live near Cheeseman Park, but it's a place that is near and dear to me. And in, a week and a half here, when my wife and I's anniversary comes up, we'll take the kids, and we have a tradition where we go and we get takeout, and we go eat at the pavilion where we got married, and then we wander through the park. And so, those are the kinds of things that it is really amazing to think that, years from now, decades from now, what we build will be the backdrop to those kinds of moments for so many people in the city that will be the place that they go every year to celebrate or to remember. That's the other thing is when someone loses a mother, a father, a grandmother, a grandfather, they always reach out and are like, how can I commemorate this? And we have a memorial bench program and a memorial tree program. And even for the people who don't formalize it in that way, the number of people who every year on a birthday or on a certain day go to that place and they just sit there to be with the memories of someone that they lost, right? That's what we're building here. And to have the opportunity to build a place that is that, we get to build parks a lot, which is great. And those parks are all special to someone, but regional parks are that special thing because they do live in the consciousness of an entire city and an entire region in a way that's different. And it's going to be that place that people go and build those memories. And those things are going to happen on that dirt. And it's really cool to be at the very beginning of saying, okay, so what does that look like? We're painting the backdrop for all of those moments, and we get an opportunity for community to tell us what they want that backdrop to look like. It's just you don't get that opportunity.
This episode of CityCast is sponsored by Babbel. Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start that journey today? You can start speaking a new language with confidence thanks to Babbel's conversation-based technique that quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Just one of the 12 languages you can learn with it, including Dutch, French, Italian, which is going to be next for me, Turkish, and Russian. I love the interactive dialogues that Babbel has, which allow me to practice what I've learned right away, and also the speech recognition function, which makes sure I'm getting the pronunciation just right, which honestly, usually I'm not. Also, I love that Babbel's lessons always cover actual things that I talk about in the real world, like food, talking to people I've just met, and also food. Staying motivated to learn a new language has never been easier thanks to real-time feedback, progress trackers, and handy visualizations. In only 10 to 15 minutes a day on Babbel's mobile app or website. So get talking with Babbel. I want you to learn another language, so I'm teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Gatorade is the #1 proven electrolyte blend designed to hydrate better than water. So you can lose more sweat and raise your game. Gatorade, is it in you?
That's all the fun, beautiful part of it. But the nuts and bolts of this are like, it's going to cost money. And so I read that the mayor's Vibrant Denver bond proposal, the latest at least, includes $70 million to help build out the Park Hill Park. But voters will have a say. And if they say no to this bond, will that change the plans for the park?
Certainly, that would change the plans for the park, right? That is, again, like I said, in the short term, that short-term condition is a park that is open to the public to use and to walk through, but there's not a lot of the amenities that, community is asking for, and there's still going to be a fence around it that we have to open and close because I talked about just the basic infrastructure, when it comes to things like lighting is not there. And so it would be a different experience. Does it mean that the park closes? Absolutely not, right? We will keep, that will be a park, and it will be a park for the people no matter what. We close that transaction, and that is what it is and will be forever. But the ability to be able to be in front of voters and say, hey, this is that once in a lifetime opportunity to build this. And this is the money that it takes to kind of build that infrastructure out so that we can take that fence down and it is open regular park hours, just like every other park, that it's permeable from all sides, no matter where you're coming from. You don't have to, live right on the park, but have to go to a gate because the gate's not right there. You should be able to come right into the park. That's the kind of thing that we can deliver if voters approve the Vibrant Bond to take that money and to take that, what we're doing right now is visioning. It is that big, high level picture. The next level will actually be design. And so to design out a 155-acre park so that we know where everything goes and we're not building things that are going to be torn out for other things, and we make sure everything fits, that's all what comes in with this bond package. So it is a really important step to really be able to deliver, I think, what the community is picturing when they think, oh, Park Hill Park. I don't think they picture kind of that first condition. They'll be excited to finally have access and not be in trouble for sneaking on there to walk their dog. But to really deliver on, and there's a lot of things that nobody even thinks about when they're in a park. We go to a park and we're like, oh yeah, this is a park. This is how it is. But the infrastructure, the irrigation infrastructure, the electrical infrastructure, where the lights are, where the bathrooms are, like that kind of stuff, people don't think about is really important to your experience in a park and creating a place that you want to come back to and is the place where you want to propose or do or have a big family picnic because it actually has enough shade for you to have a good experience there. And that's what we're looking to deliver with that would definitely be delayed without that bond money.
So the proposed bond package, again, like I said, it still has to pass city council before it even gets to voters. And at least one council member is unhappy with how much money has been set aside for Parks and Rec. Councilman Paul Cashman pointed out that, quote, Parks and Rec gets a large general fund disbursement every year. They get $40-some million every year through the Parks Legacy Fund. They've got other funding mechanisms. Do you think that that's a fair criticism?
No, and I've talked to Councilman Cashman about this. I think the thing that everybody forgets, even when folks were involved in this process, is that when we went to Denver voters in 2018 to say, hey, let's create this Park Legacy Fund, it was because we didn't have enough money for parks, and there were things that were starting to fall apart, and there were missed opportunities, and that was additional money. And it is specifically written into that legislation that cannot be supplanted, because what happens if you don't write that in, is you create a new revenue source for something. And then people are like, oh, well, Parks doesn't need as much money anymore because they have this. And you end up with the same budget you had before you asked voters. And voters have approved new revenue that is dedicated for parks, but you're actually using the general fund that was for parks for some other thing that voters didn't approve. So you have to be very careful to make sure that you're not supplanting, which is, switching out the money for other money. And that's what, that sentiment of, well, you have this legacy fund now, so you don't need this, is textbook supplanting, which we promised voters and we wrote into there that we can't do. And so when there are $6 billion worth of things and $930,000 worth of capacity, then everybody's picking at the edges and looking at, hey, what about this? And so that idea comes up, but that's why we were specific in the legislation. I think for me, quintessentially, this is possible because Denver voters approved that in 2018. I remember when I was on city council, I met with the Parks Department, and there was a parcel in Golden Triangle, and it was in an area that people did not have a safe 10-minute walk or roll to a park. So it's a high need for the department to deliver on that vision that every single resident will have a high quality park that they can walk or roll to in 10 minutes or less. So that the parcel was going to fit that need. And I can't remember the specifics of why, but the city had like a first right of refusal on it. So we didn't even have to compete with a private sector developer who wanted to build on it. We had the first right to say, hey, we'll take that property. And so it met the need. It's Golden Triangle, so we know hundreds, thousands of new units are going to come on. All those people aren't going to have a park. And so I was excited about it as a parks guy on council. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, you guys have to do this. And they came back to me and they're like, hey, we had to pass on that property. It's going to be, a big, it's going to be something else. It's going to be sold to a private developer or something. And I said, well, why'd you pass on it? And they said, because we didn't have the money. Like we can't even keep up with the needs that we have with our current parks and our sprinkler system. We have no money dedicated to purchasing property. So we missed that opportunity. That was part of the impetus that led to, referring to voters this initiative. And the Park Legacy Fund is paying for the acquisition of the property. It will add money to that 75 to make sure that we're able to deliver for the community what they need. It is that funding that made this all possible. But just saying, hey, you don't put anything in the bond for parks because you have this new source of revenue is not what the new funding source was designed for.
So one last question. I believe you adopted a dog, Park-Killed Dave. This was a dog that was living in the park prior to sort of the work starting to be done on it. What's up with Park-Killed Dave?
Yeah, I was wondering when you said earlier we're going to move on from the fun stuff. I was like, oh, all right. You're going to be the first person who has no questions about Park Hill Dave for me. So here, we were full circle back to the fun stuff. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how much of the story you already know because it was all over the news. But, there was when my team went out to kind of do an initial assessment of the property, like what would we be getting into if this deal were to be negotiated? We were doing a tour with the team that does the maintenance out there for the owners. And when we got there, they said, hey, just so you know, we're going to go tour the whole site, but there's a dog that lives here. So don't worry if you see this dog. It won't come anywhere near us. In fact, it will stay away from us. But, dog lives here. And we were all instantly like, what are you talking about? And they're like, yeah, showed up like a year ago. We tried to catch him. We brought treats. I, tried to get him in. He won't come within 30 yards of anybody. So then we called, called Animal Protection, and they sent out the dog catchers, couldn't catch him. And so we've just kind of decided that he lives here now because we can't figure out how to get him. And so, this is like instantly you're like on a tour, supposed to be looking at irrigation boxes and stuff like that. But you're like, where is this dog? And sure enough, we come around this one turn by this one tree, and there's this big old German Shepherd looking at us. And as soon as we get close enough, he kind of picks up as this little ratty stuffed animal that he has, and he kind of trots off. And you take a step, he'd take a step, you take a step. He always stayed at least 30 yards away from you. As soon as you got past his tree, he circled back and sat back down with his stuffed animal. And everybody's obviously instantly like, oh my gosh, who is this dog? What's this dog's story? Clearly not aggressive because he's like more avoiding you and shy. So we knew that, we would have to resolve this before we can't just open the park with a wild dog living in it. And so we worked with the property owners and with Animal Protection. We were like, let's try this again. We have professionals who can come out and catch this dog. And they came back out and they were like, we can't even find him anymore. And my team would be back out there looking at something like, you can't find him. He's like right here. So he was smart enough. He knew the dog catchers were coming and would hide. When it was my crew, he's like, oh, they might bring me a treat. So he'd stay. Anyway, escalated to the point where we finally had to sit down with the Denver Animal Shelter and be like, what's the next level of catching? And they said, well, we can put out a humane trap, but it needs to be monitored. We were like, okay, our team, we're out there regularly checking on things, getting ready for how does this go down now. We've entered the process of actually purchasing. And so we're like, okay, we can do that. So I ended up actually picking up the trap and getting trained myself on the trap. I delivered it to my guys. My team's out there. They were totally attached to the dog, had named it Park Hill Dave. John Martinez on my team had a friend he used to golf with whose name was Dave and was in his phone as Park Hill Dave. So we started calling the dog Park Hill Dave, and then everybody's calling the dog Park Hill Dave. Later, we found out the neighbors all called him Mad Max because they all knew about him too, but we didn't know that at the time. Anyway, set the trap, and my team was like, we're so stressed out about it. He's such a good dog. We don't want him to be trapped in there. We're going to watch it. And we want him to feel comfortable. So it was about to snow that weekend when we first set it out. And so they're like, we're going to put food in there and a blanket in there. We're going to cover it so he has a safe place to go during the snowstorm. And we're not going to set the trap to go off. We just want him to get comfortable first. And they went out and got a trail camera because they're like, we want to make sure that it's Park Hill Dave that's going in there and not like a raccoon or something. And so sure enough, Dave is like watching them set up this whole thing. There's like a camera strapped to this tree that he's always at. As soon as they leave, we have camera footage from the trail camera. Dave walks right up, looks right in the camera. He's like, oh, I'm wise to this, and then licks the camera. It's adorable. And so he went in over the weekend for the snow. He's pulling the blanket out. He's pulling the food out, like kind of showing it to the camera, like, hey, you got more of this? Like, I'm done. On Tuesday after the snowstorm, they're like, all right, Operation Park Hill Dave in effect. We're going to set the trap to go off, see if we can catch him. Put like a nice juicy steak in there, like had the whole setup. Within like 45 minutes, my phone is blowing up. We caught Park Hill Dave. I'm getting pictures from the trail cam of him just sitting in the cage like, wait a second, you tricked me on this one. So went over, we picked him up, took him back to the animal shelter. They scanned him for chips. He had a microchip. We were all hoping for some homeward bound story. There's some, little kid who's been crying for the last year. Like, where's my dog? And we get to reunite him. Turned out it was not a happy story. He had been at another animal shelter, not the Denver one, in, I believe, Commerce City. He'd been adopted out. The guy who adopted him was not good to him, so the shelter had to take him back. Then they put him through one of the canine prison training programs where they go live with an inmate and get trained. So he got fully trained with that, but I believe, we don't know this for sure, that he got very attached during that because German Shepherds are very attached to their people. So they adopted him out of that after 4 weeks of having a person that he lived with. And within 24 hours, he ran away. I think he was looking for, his guy. It was like, who are you?
Yeah.
And that was all the way out at Fairmount Cemetery. He ran off with less than 24 hours into his second adoption, worked his way at some point to Park Hill, and then he was like, hey, this is pretty good, and I don't like people anymore. This is not going well for me. I'm just going to hang out here and live my life on the golf course. So the shelter checked with that. The other animal shelter got clearance to adopt him out. There was nowhere for him to go. The person who had adopted him a year plus ago and had him for less than 24 hours had moved, and so they're like, well, we're going to put him up for adoption. And I was like, all right, I'll be there in 15 minutes. I made one stop on the way to get him a new stuffed animal because everybody on my team was like heartbroken. They're like, they took him to the shelter and they didn't even take his little ratty stuffed animal. So I got him a new duck, and I went and picked him up, and that was almost exactly 3 months ago, I think. And so yeah, he lives with me now, and he's got a fancy Parks and Recreation vest so that he can come to work and help me out. So Park Hill Dave's doing great, living his best life. So he's great.
Glad to know he's doing well. Well, Jolyn, this was so fun, and I really am looking forward to seeing how this park shapes up. So thanks for giving us the update. This is great.
Yeah, I can't wait to host you for a walk with Park Hill Dave once we get it open for passive use. Get that gate open, and we'll take you around sights and sounds of Park Hill once it's open.
I'd love it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Take care.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell the person who wants to see a zebra sanctuary at Park Hill Park about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. And thanks to our new neighbor, Stephen M., who just joined our membership program. You can get cool perks by signing up today at membership.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later.